Mike. That feed came down pretty frickin' quickly there, didn't it? Welcome back to the hour number 2 of the fastest 2 hours in talk radio. It's the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live on AmericanFreedomRadio.com 5 days a week. If you're in New Zealand, it's Tuesday through Saturday of those 5 days because we're broadcasting live from the future. That's why all our reporting is so up to date, allegedly. And my very special guest is James Bartley, and I have this consideration to bestow upon you, if I may. Can we be so certain of anything, considering the huge quantity of mind control, non-human entities, and so on and so forth, technologies, yada yada? Can we actually be sure of anything really at all? Because if we were under mind control, we wouldn't know it.
That's a very good question. What I encourage people to do is to remain heart-centered. The heart is a electromagnetic organ. It pumps out more electromagnetic energy than any part of our body. And when we feel or know the truth, it is an inner knowing. It's a heart vibe. Some people literally feel a pleasant energy pulse in their heart center when they hear something and they recognize it as the truth. And other people, myself included, when we hear something that doesn't sit well with us, that seems to be a falsehood, we likewise get a feeling in our heart center, that a discordant kind of feeling, a discordant kind of energy. So people need to go within, as all the mystics and seers and sages have said all along. And that's why they've gone to such efforts to shunt us into the left side and make everything logical and rational and reductionist. We lose ourselves because expanded awareness and an expanded consciousness is where we need to be at in order to deal with these kinds of issues. And the more we trust ourselves and the more we listen to that still silent voice within us, I think that the better off we'll be, because thinking is too slow, mind is too slow. We have to get back to expanded consciousness, expanded awareness. And there's a lot of ways to do that, a lot of safe ways to do that. There's a lot of like Eastern religions that have been set up, and the Western religions too have been set up as basically defaults and traps by these archontic influences. Many people that go to these Eastern cults where there's gurus and whatnot find out that they're anything but love and light, that they're archontically controlled and reptilian controlled. Again, it goes back to trusting ourselves and going within for the answers. That would be my answer.
Intuition, which means tuition from within. You know, you got to teach yourself. And yes. I have this also crystallized form of vision of mine, is that I can instinctively tell when I'm doing something wrong, you know, like if I'm talking to somebody who's a bit of a douchebag or a scumbag or some other form of bag, I'll actually feel bad about it, even if I'm not doing anything bad. I'll just be talking to this person and just kind of like almost like my teeth are grinding, sort of thing. Like they make me feel tense. Is this some kind of like a proper reaction to these scumbaggery entities that we're talking about here?
It is, because it's all about vibration and resonance. I first realized I had an ability to sense the presence of unseen entities, negative entities, as well as sense the presence of negative entities within people, hybrid hosts. And this came about because I was in a 6-hour car ride with somebody, and I was as far away from this person as I could be, just clutching onto the armchair at the opposite end of the small car, gripping it tightly, and my forearms were tensed up, my biceps were tensed up. I felt like my heart center was being attacked. I was feeling like foggy-headed and almost in a fugue state. And I realized later that this person was indeed an entity, had an entity within him, because long story short, this entity one night astrally projected out to me, entered my dreamscape, tried to sodomize me. Long story, I fought it off. But it's kind of the things that happen to people that work with these issues. But then it dawned on me, that's why I was all tensed up and why my muscles were tensing up, why my heart chakra felt like it was beating under assault, because the entity next to me was parasitically feeding off my energy. You always hear about, oh, this person is an energy drain, he's an energy vampire. Well, there's something to that, because it's all about parasitism, energetic vampirism. And you listen to all these quaint sayings from the past. Oh, that person is starting to get under my skin. Or, yeah, what's gotten into you? Right? Those are like quaint sayings, but they have a basis in reality. Where do they come from? In the old days, also in indigenous societies, they were well versed in how to deal with and how to recognize the malign influence of these archontic entities, seen or unseen. So
Now,
what you were doing was you were reacting properly to a negative influence.
Now, we've had discussions about archons and psychopaths, and they seem to be similar things. And what came out of those conversations is that they're actually infectious. You can actually become one of them if you come into contact for too long, and accept that kind of thing. Now, that sounds an awful lot like demon possession. Now, I've got 2 convictions for possession, but it's not a demon entity related charge. And well, I was just wondering, what part does drug consumption have to play with possession?
I'm glad you brought that up. One need not have an overabundance of reptilian DNA to be taken up as a host by these entities or demonic entities in general. All one needs to do is imbibe in certain drugs, in particular crystal meth, and a variant of that in America, it's known as crank. Crystal meth is a fast track to being taken up as a host by these entities, because the drug has a sympathetic frequency with these negative entities. And I had a friend who worked in a state hospital in California, where the criminally insane were kind of lodged in these places. And she used to work and sit in group sessions with what they call tweakers, all these meth heads. And privately amongst themselves, they will say that I had all these voices in my head telling me, to do all these horrible things. I had these voices in my head telling me to go onto these child porn sites. I had all these voices in my head. And also, when you study the criminal files of meth heads, you will see a commonality of berserk behavior, of mayhem, of out of control violence. In San Diego, when I was living there, there was a couple of meth heads in East County, San Diego. They were babysitting the young girl of the sister of the woman. There was a woman and her boyfriend, and the woman had a sister, and they were babysitting the little girl of her sister. And long story short, they were on a daily basis, horrendously abusing this little girl. And eventually they ran the taps in the bathtub, filled it up with boiling hot, scalding water, and dropped the poor baby in there. The baby died. The skin came off of it. It was burned, scalded right off. And these 2 were tweakers. They were crank heads. And when I saw them on TV being arraigned in court, you could look right in their faces. It's lights are on, but nobody's home, right? Flatness of effect. There's whatever is in there. It was not human. So long story short is certain drugs, crystal meth, which is another reason why crystal meth is so prevalent and why it's so widespread in Western society.
And
it's
the
a fast
police,
track to being taken up.
The police in a number of countries are involved heavily distributing this out to the population.
Absolutely. And steroids also. People wonder why cops are so crazy.
Suffer from roid rage real badly. It's because they're on the roids.
It's
not hemorrhoids.
But I'm absolutely convinced that the police forces in the Western world are the outward manifestation, the public face, if you will, of this reptilian overlordship. They specifically recruit people with a low IQ who fit a psychological profile, because once again, psychology follows neurology, which follows genetics. their reptilian demonic familiars goad them into becoming wanting to join the police forces, because these people are essentially control freaks. And once they get into the police forces in the training, I'm sure they do it. They're taught to shoot dogs all the time, like the Army does. And what this does is it feeds the reptilian bloodlust. You will see when you've studied the lives of serial murderers that many of them at an early age were killing furry animals. It's bad enough that a lot of kids kill amphibians, toads, frogs, what have you. But a lot of these serial killers at an early age developed a bloodlust for killing furry animals, cats, dogs, squirrels, whatever the case may be. So these people get into the police force, these people that are already full-on hybrids to begin with, reptilian hybrids, they fit into that profile. And the killing, especially of dogs, becomes an addiction, because killing and torturing and maiming for sadists is an addiction. And that's why they do it. That's why they fly off the handle. I'm sorry, officer, was I doing anything wrong? Boom, they're set upon, and it's like a pack of hyenas. It's like a shark feeding frenzy. They set upon that poor person, shoot all the dogs, and it goes on and on and on, because it's an act of domination. What they want to do is create that fear vibe, put everybody ill at ease, and it's an act of domination. It's like when the cities didn't submit to the Romans and they eventually took over and sacked the town. They would kill all the cattle, kill all the dogs, and the people that they didn't kill, they would sell into slavery.
Can I say that
it's very similar to that.
It sounds an awful lot like what I've been saying for a couple of weeks now. Like, I've had the realization there's only actually really three groups of people in society that I actually really truly fear. One being the gangs, the second being the cops, which are incidentally a gang, and the third being judges. And the things that tie them all together is they all use deception. None of them have respect for the rule of law, and in the case of just police and gangs, they're very prone to completely unprovoked violence. And that's why I'm actually I get terrified of cops and gang members approaching my car, and you see these judges come out in their black Masonic robes, and they sit down, and everybody's like, all rise, worship the judge, and I'm like, hold on a second, are we in Solomon's frickin' temple here? What is going on, bro? What is going on?
It's the court of Saturn. Yeah, that's the whole idea, is this attitude of domination and control. And there's a hive consciousness at work where they all resonate and they all vibe to the same vibration of anger, of rage. And they want to promote that fear. To get an idea of what the reptilian mindset is all about, please allow me to read just a short paragraph from a book written by Roy Hazelwood, who was the original FBI profiler, what was then known as the Behavioral Sciences Unit. And this will give the listeners an idea of what these elite so-called serial killers are all about, and what the garden variety serial killers and child pedophiles, pedos, are all about. This was written by someone named Mike DeBartolabin. And Mike DeBartolabin was a serial killer, and he was a sadist who was arrested by the American Secret Service because he was counterfeiting. And when they raided his house, they found all these videos of him torturing his wife. And so they passed on all these videos to Roy Hazelwood in the Behavioral Sciences Unit. And this is a written creed that Mike DeBartolabin wrote. And here it is: sadism, the wish to inflict pain on others, is not the essence of sadism. The central impulse is to have complete mastery over another person, to make him or her a helpless object of our will, to become the absolute ruler over her, to become her God, to do with her as one pleases our means to this end. And the most radical aim is to make her suffer, since there is no greater power over another than that of inflicting pain on her, to force her to undergo suffering without her being able to defend herself. The pleasure is in the complete domination of another person, is the very essence of the sadistic drive. And that's what they're all about. And just to complete a thought earlier about the astral dreamscape manipulation, after the person is sodomized by the reptilian, when they think they're about to put the blocks to what they believe is a sexy woman in their astral dreamscape, oftentimes simultaneous to being sodomized, the object of their desires, the woman, morphs into something like repulsive, their own sister, their own mother, a small child, some weird hermaphroditic he-she creature, whatever the case may be, something visually repulsive uh, in conjunction with being sodomized. And when this happens enough, because they will continue to do this until their aims are achieved, the person begins to develop a cognitive association between regular heterosexual intercourse and um, anal pain, sodomy pain. And this is why you find so many serial murderers who are impotent. They cannot get an erection. This is why, for example, Ted Bundy used to masturbate over the skulls of his victims. This is why someone like John Wayne Gacy, there was a kid who had this interesting hobby. He became pen pals pre-internet days with all these serial killers. One of whom was John Wayne Gacy, and he visited John Wayne Gacy in prison, managed to be alone with him in a room with John Wayne Gacy, and it was probably the first time John Wayne Gacy, who'd murdered over 30 boys, had been alone with a boy since his incarceration began. No sooner was John Wayne Gacy alone in this room with this boy that he began threatening to strangle him. He threatened to sodomize him and make him bleed all over the floor. And Gacy began trying to fondle himself, but to no result because he was impotent once again. Incidentally, that kid also...
hold on. Hold that thought. Maybe that's a poor choice of words. We'll be right back after the break at the Vinny Eastwood Show.com. Don't you touch that boy. I mean that dial. We'll be right back.